If you want to learn something, you might as well learn from the best. And that's why we're here at the International Car Wash Association's annual convention here in Nashville to meet with the president of the International Car Wash Association, Marcus Kittrell himself. Marcus is one of my students here at the CRE Accelerator program, and he built, scaled, and sold a massive car wash business. So not only will you learn about how to open and operate car washes, you'll learn what it's like to invest in them and what he's actually starting to invest in commercial real estate today. Awesome. Well, we are sitting down today with Marcus Kittrell from Mammoth Holdings at the International Car Wash Association's Car Wash Show here in Nashville, Tennessee. Marcus, I mean, this place is packed. There's a lot of people here. I mean, tell us a little bit about ICA and what you guys are doing here in Nashville today.
Yeah, the International Car Wash Association has been around, I think, since the 50s. Some guys started it, some car wash operators. And you can see now we're packed with several thousand square feet of equipment, and I think we're close to maybe a little bit over 9,000 people in attendance. So it's been good to see.
So take us back to the early 2000s. That's when you got your start in the car wash industry, correct?
Yeah, I actually started in 1981 as a sophomore in high school working at a full-service car wash. And then in 1986, at age 21, I built my very first self-serve car wash. And then it just kind of progressed from there. And then in 2000, I did a lease purchase for we call it, it's a tunnel car wash, where you have the conveyor and the cars go through the tunnel. And then in 2002, I converted one to what we call an express model, and that's what you see a lot of now, where you pay like an ATM machine, and then you go through the car wash, and there's free vacuums at the end. And so that's how the industry's progressed, is doing it that way.
Yeah, you had a pretty great exit to private equity.
Yep.
We don't have to talk about the details if you don't want to on that part. But what's really interesting is, I mean, when you first got into the industry, you hadn't set out to have that private equity exit. That's something that has really kind of popped up in the last few years. I mean, when you were first getting into the industry, what was your goal?
To make a living. I mean, that was the goal, was to make a living. I had no idea it would turn into what you see now. The exit for most operators back in the day were, maybe passed along to my son or my family. You still see quite a bit of that in our industry. But now with private equity, especially the last 5 to 7 years, there's an opportunity to get your valuations up, get your EBITDA up, and then to be able to sell. And I was fortunate. I held my real estate, sold the business side, but because that's always kind of been my exit. I love real estate like you do, and so fortunately early on that was going to be my exit. So that's the way I ran my company. I had an S corp for the corporation that ran the car wash, and then I had a LLC that owned the real estate. And so, my plans from probably the early 90s, 93, I think is when I formed an LLC. Early on was, hey, whatever, I'm going to either sell the business to my son or my kids or somebody else. I'm going to keep the real estate. The rich guys in the city I live in, they all own real estate. That was my reason for it, is the heavy hitters that I always see is the ones that I'll say, hey, I want to do what he's doing. I want to own real estate. That's what I want to do.
So when you first got started, self-serve was the predominant way to get your car washed.
Yeah.
But today, we're seeing a completely different style, which is really tunnel-based. You were one of the pioneers in that industry, so tell us how you found it, why you decided to kind of go all in, and where the industry is now.
When we started the Express model back in 2002, it was a guy named Benny Alford in Baton Rouge that put this concept together. And then the second guy was a guy named Lamar Beck with Goo Goos. And, you could just process cars. I mean, you can run 100 to 150 cars per hour. In a self-serve, like we were talking about earlier, you're selling time. I mean, and so you can only have so much throughput. And people want to, the landscape has changed with people. They don't have the time. They don't want to take the time. They don't want to, spend their time out in the hot sun washing a car. They want to ride through and go to the ball game or, go to the ballpark with the kids or, stuff like that. So, the industry's changed because our customers have changed.
It's kind of taking the Amazon model, right? It's that on-demand, we want it right now kind of thing.
Well, that too, but the club membership is what's made it explode, especially on the private equity side. That's when you saw the private equity guys get involved, because now you got recurring revenue. Weather doesn't affect it as much, and that's why, and that's the reason you saw the private equity guys see how they can scale the business. You have a baseline, you know what you're going to bring in every month, and the rest is gravy after that.
That's right. It's very much like self-storage now, right?
Yeah.
You got people paying $30, $50 a month for, deluxe car wash packages, and whether they show up that month or not, they're going to pay that, and they're also probably not going to cancel it. It's kind of like a gym membership. It's I'll take care of that in the spring.
We've seen customers. We've had some customers wash 30, 50 times a month. And then we have some customers that won't wash for 3 or 4 months. So it all kind of balances itself out.
How many of those customers do you have that are in that 30 to 50 car washes a month? And how many car washes does it take before it really eats into your margin typically?
Very few, less than a couple percent wash
That's
that
a lot
many
of time.
times. I mean, who has the time to do that?
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of time. The average customer, I think, washes about 4.5 a month, 3.5, 4.5. And that's kind of the average. And so they want to be able to, just say you have a $10 car wash and they can buy a club for, say, $20. Well, then that means they wash twice and they've made their money back. If they wash one more time, they're ahead. And that's a good feeling for the customer, and it's a good feeling for us. And as far as eating into the profit, gosh, I'm sure I think it varies for different companies, but you have to honor all of it. You're in the club business, and that's just part of it.
That's right.
Yeah,
because you'll have the person that gets it and never shows up, and they try and hopefully balance out the person that shows up 30 times a month.
'Cause you don't want people to pay for stuff they don't want.
Right.
We kind of have to watch what we do there.
Yeah, it's pretty smart.
To be fair for people.
Well, let's dive into the self-serve car washes a little bit more, because that's where you got your start, and that's where a lot of people today that are not private equity are seeing an opportunity in the car wash industry, is buying 4, 6, 8, 12 bay self-service. Maybe they've got 1 or 2 in-bay autos. What do you think? What's a reasonable price to pay per bay? I know it's going to be all over the board, but let's just assume averages.
Yeah, it depends on probably the real estate value a lot. But back in the day when we were buying and selling these things a lot, it was always a multiple of gross. And so just say, for instance, your wash did $100,000 a year. You could expect $300,000 to $500,000, depending on the condition of the car wash, depending on the condition of the equipment. And so that's always been the gauge, and that still holds true now. That's how most of them are bought. When you start talking the express model, then that gets into EBITDA, a completely different valuation. But as far as the self-serves, that's the way we did it. And it's still a great business in the right market. You can't put an express tunnel in every market, even though some guys are trying, but you can't put them in every market. But you do see a lot of self-service. I still own 4 of them myself. I still love that business. But you have to invest in them. It's still a pretty good, CapEx investment, and you have to get in there and work it, and 7 days a week. It's not an easy business. You still have to work it.
Sure, it's more capital intensive on equipment, but the great thing is today you can write that equipment all off in year 1, depreciate it, and get some pretty serious tax benefits. I mean, Can you walk us through what your CapEx might be like on a typical car wash deal?
Yeah, with the self-serve, I think it's about $25,000 to $35,000 a bay for the self-serve equipment. When you start talking the automatic car washes, it could be $150,000 to $250,000. I mean, it's a lot of money. So you have to make sure that you're in the right spot to add an automatic. Not every self-serve car wash can accommodate one, nor should they. The CapEx, I mean, it's expensive. It's not cheap. I mean, that's one thing that you do find out when you looking at this industry, and you just say, oh my goodness, because it used to be $10,000 a bay, $50,000, $60,000 on a 6-bay car wash, plus the car wash, you can make a really good return. But a lot of times you buy these old car washes, the equipment's completely worn out, and instead of trying to fix it every day, you just need to go buy new stuff. And like I said, you get to write it off the first year, at least you do for right now. So
how do you prepare for those expenses? I mean, how much in capital reserves should somebody expect to be putting away each month?
If you look on your P&L statement, most of your repairs, if you look at each month, it's about a 5 to 7% expense on your P&L statement. And so I think if you doubled that, you would be in good shape. The good thing about the self-serve, it doesn't require replacing the equipment, because you got pumps and motors, you can normally fix things. But when you come to automatics, sometimes at the end of a 5 or 6 year lifespan, you've got to replace it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that can be fun.
Yeah, very expensive. But the good news is you've washed enough cars, generate enough revenue, hopefully, to pay for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think there's still an opportunity today in the self-serve car wash industry with tunnels taking off as much as they have?
Absolutely. It's not a growing segment of our industry, but it's still a good segment in our industry. There's a lot of self-serve car washes out there, and they're on some really good real estate. And so, I think there's some really good opportunity, but you really need to know your market. That's going to dictate your success in the self-serve industry for sure.
Okay, take us back to 2000 until you sold to private equity. I mean, what was it like growing the business, and what got a private equity firm interested in acquiring your company?
Back in 2000, I had leased a full-service car wash, a leased purchase. And so that's kind of how I got my very first one done. And then I went to visit Benny Alford in 2002 and saw the Express, and immediately got back home and converted a full service that I had just bought. And once that started, we were one of the first 3 in the country to do it. And once customers got used to it, it just exploded. And so we had that one, then we went down the road a couple of years later and built another one.
What do you think caused private equity to get interested in car washes?
The clubs, the subscription business.
So as soon as recurring revenue became a thing,
that's when it exploded. You saw the company like Mr. Car Wash, that's our largest express chain now, and they went public a couple of years ago. But the subscription business is when the lights went on, and it was Katie bar the door, and here comes all the private equity. And that's what happened with us. So a really good friend of mine named Gary Dennis calls me and says, listen, let's group together and let's put our car washes together. He had 8, I had 7 at the time. And he goes, let's go find a private equity investor. Right now, most car washes are getting calls by private equity. Well, we went and found somebody and said, listen, we want to find the right partner to get in the business with us and help us grow this business. And so, I had the energy to maybe partner up and let, somebody else do some of the heavy lifting in the areas. And when you scale like we do at that size, 22, to 40 to 50 to 70 to 100 to 137, well, you can have a lot of good people that can scale and help you. And that's probably the one thing that I saw, hey, listen, I don't have to be the entrepreneur and do everything myself. And that's what it was turning into. And that's when I said, listen, it's time for me to do something. And, they were very fair with the pricing, and they let me keep my real estate. That's not always the case with private equity. Sometimes They want to keep the real estate. They want to sell it to a REIT, take those funds and buy more washes. But they let me do that. And so that was my sign. It's time to sign the papers and let's get started on the bigger company.
Yeah, I mean, that changes a lot of things, right? Because now you're selling the businesses, you're still retaining the real estate, You're getting that monthly income, you're getting the valuation on the properties. I mean, that's every business owner's dream exit, right?
Yes, yeah, and that was definitely mine, and it's allowed me to do some other stuff we've talked about, some other real estate that I've watched you get involved in and follow, and so I've been able to do that. And I love car washing. I'll always want to be in it, but maybe not like I was before at the entrepreneur side of it. I'd rather be the investor side of it.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit too, because you started off in car washes.
Yep.
Now you're actually expanding into flex space, which is an incredibly popular side of commercial real estate. And I think you've
Thanks to listening to you.
Well, good. I'm glad I helped. And you've got a very interesting model that I think more people should be paying attention to and hearing about. So will you kind of tell us about your flex space?
If I was going to put my office in one, I was going to build one the way I wanted it. And so we went in and we put the epoxy on the floors. We finished out the bathrooms. We put baseboards in. nice paint, concrete parking lot, outdoor lights in the parking lot, irrigation system, nice landscaping. And I said, this is, if I drove up, this would be attractive to me.
I love it. I mean, I think that thermometer of would I want to be here is something that all real estate investors should consider, because if you wouldn't want to rent your own space, should you even be involved in it?
That's a big driver for me. I would not want to own real estate that I would not have my own kids overlooking, because one day they will. And so I'm very particular about how we do that kind of stuff.
Well, Marcus, what advice would you have for newer commercial real estate investors that are interested in getting into the car wash world?
The first thing I would do is I would get involved in an association. It'd be the first thing I would do. Get involved in the industry, understand it, go to the big shows. There's a lot of local or regional shows that you can get involved in all across the country. But I would go to the shows, ask people, get involved, get a mentor. I think that's important. Find someone that will let you come in and maybe work at the wash. I would encourage people to do a lot of research. And then, if you're going to get involved, there are some mentorships, especially some associations. They can kind of, pair you up with somebody. And I think that's extremely important.
I think that's great. Well, Marcus, thank you for your time today. If anybody listening wants to follow you or learn more about Mammoth Holdings, where should they go?
Yeah, go to mammothholdings.com. That's the best way. I've got all my information on there, and so does our other partners. And so we're always willing to, open up and help any way we can.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So there you have it for our conversation with the one and only Marcus Kittrell. If you want to learn more about transforming car washes into something else, maybe you want to take a dilapidated car wash and turn it into something really cool, check out this video here.